Hello. I am King Henry VIII of England. I see that you want to know a little bit about my life. I have to admit, I am always excited when someone remembers me. I know it has been a long time since I walked the countrysides of my beloved England. That said, I know you are busy, so I will get right to it. I was born on June the 28th, 1491 in Greenwich, England. Greenwich, I should point out, is a part of London, which is of course, the greatest city on earth. My father, King Henry VII, and my mother, Elizabeth, of York, had already started our family by the time I came along. I was the third of 7 children. First came Arthur, then Margaret, then I. Mary, Elizabeth, Edmund, and Catherine would all follow later. Sadly, only Arthur, Margaret, Mary, and I survived past infancy. I often look back at the early days of my youth, and I must admit, it is rather difficult for me to believe that I was never even supposed to be the King of England. My older brother, Arthur, was the one who was supposed to inherit the throne. He was a very serious boy. I can remember one time in particular, when Arthur was just learning to ride. Following his lesson, he wanted to show me what he had learned, so he came to my room, where I had spent the afternoon with my soldiers. In those early years, I spent much of my time hoping he would include me in his activities. He was my older brother, and in my eyes he could do no wrong. So, when he offered to demonstrate what he had learned, naturally, I jumped at the opportunity. Unfortunately, at that time, my father entered the room and without saying a word, struck Arthur across the face hard enough to throw him to the floor. It seems that following his lesson, Arthur had, absent-mindedly, helped his tutor in removing the saddle from his horse. This behavior, my father pointed out, was not acceptable for the future King of England. At the time, I couldn't understand what Arthur had done to warrant such a reaction from my father. Looking back on my own reign as king, however, I recognize that my father was trying to prepare Arthur for a future in which his strength would be tested every day, and any perception of weakness could mean the end of his reign. You must understand, Arthur was to inherit the throne of England, and not only govern, but govern as an absolute monarch. Alas, that would never come to pass. I have always thought Arthur would have been a great king. Although I can now understand why Arthur had received such harsh treatment, at the time, I was secretly glad that I was younger than he. I didn't want to be the next King of England. I absorbed myself in my studies, and was fully involved in the Renaissance which had gripped Europe. It was then that I developed my love of music and of athletic competition. I don't think I boast when I tell you that I was what you would call a true Renaissance man. In 1502, my life took an unexpected turn, as Arthur contracted the dreaded sweating sickness, and died soon thereafter. This left me not only without my beloved brother, but also the next in line for the throne of the King of England. Please join me in part 2 of this interview, which will be available very soon. Right now, I am tired and must get some rest.